for the East Turkestan government in exile. On behalf of East Turkestan government in exile, I would like to thank you for joining us today for our press conference. Today, our press conference will address the latest issue and events pertaining to East Turkestan, the government in exile, and the Uyghurs. We will start off with the statement by Prime Minister Salih Hudair of the East Turkestan government in exile and the founder of ET and AM to address a few issues and announce upcoming events. Then we will have quick statements by the Uyghur concentration camp survivor Zumrud Daoud, and then we will open up the floor for questions. You can comment directly into Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter live stream with your questions. Thank you. Salih Hudair.
Good morning. Firstly, I'd like to thank everyone for being here today or for joining us online. On behalf of East Turkestan and its people, I would like to thank the International Parliamentary Alliance on China and the 63 parliamentarians from 16 countries that have supported our complaint against China at the International Criminal Court. Earlier this summer, on July 6th, lawyers led by Rodney Dixon QC filed a formal complaint at the International Criminal Court against Chinese officials for genocide and other crimes against humanity on behalf of the East Turkestan government in exile and the East Turkestan National Awakening Movement. We urge all governments, especially member states of the ICC, to support our case against China and also to recognize China's atrocities against Uyghur, Kazakh, Kyrgyz, Uzbek, and other Turkic peoples in occupied East Turkestan as a genocide. In October of this year, the Canadian Parliamentary Subcommittee of International Human Rights on the Standing Committee on Foreign Affairs and International Development designated China's atrocities against Uyghurs and other Turkic peoples in East Turkestan as a genocide. We thank the Canadian Parliament and we urge the Canadian government to follow through with the subcommittee's recommendations. A week later, U.S. Senators John Cornyn, Robert Menendez, James Risch, Marco Rubio, Ben Cardin, and Jeff Merkley introduced a resolution in the U.S. Senate to recognize China's genocide against Uyghurs and other Turkic peoples. We express our great thanks to the U.S. Senate, and we urge the U.S. House to introduce a similar resolution. More recently, the U.S. government has removed the so-called East Turkestan Islamic Movement, which was a non-existent group that China had fabricated following September 11 to label East Turkestan and its people as terrorists in order to justify its campaign of genocide, colonization, and occupation in East Turkestan. We thank the U.S. government, especially Secretary Pompeo, for actively highlighting the plight of East Turkestan and its people. However, we call on governments, organizations, and individuals across the world to recognize East Turkestan's struggle to regain its independence. China wants to prevent the independence of East Turkestan, as stated in its national defense strategy, in order to achieve its geopolitical push to become the most powerful economic, political, and military power in the world through the Belt and Road Initiative. Because East Turkestan and its people are viewed by China As an obstacle to achieving this goal, China has increased the brutal campaign of colonization, genocide, and occupation in East Turkestan in recent years. Aside from locking up millions of people in concentration camps, prisons, and using them as slave labor, or killing them for their organs, we suspect China might be engaging in or planning to engage in biological warfare against Uyghurs and other Turkic peoples. In 2017, the PLA's biowarfare strategy textbook hinted at the use of ethnic-specific genetic attacks against China's enemies. In 2018, Chinese state media Xinhua reported that between 2016 to 2017, some 36 million people between the ages of 12 and 65 had their DNA, voice prints, and retina scans collected across East Turkestan. The official Chinese census puts the total population of East Turkestan at 24.5 million at that time in 2018. There is a huge discrepancy in terms of the stated population of East Turkestan and the number of people who had their biometric data collected. We believe that China is downplaying the true population of East Turkestan and its people. Back in 1947, the government of the East Turkestan Republic had submitted documents to the US State Department which estimated the population of East Turkestan's Turkic peoples at that time being around 7 million. Today, China claims Uyghurs and other Turkic peoples number only 13.5 million, with some 12 million Uyghurs. However, based on historical data and population growth rate calculations, we estimate that the true population of Uyghur and other Turkic peoples in East Turkestan number anywhere from 35 to 40 million. We call on governments and organizations to further research to figure out the true population of East Turkestan and its people. We would like to stress again the issue of East Turkestan is not simply an issue of human rights violations. It's an issue of colonization, genocide, and occupation that is continuing in the 21st century. This has been ongoing since China invaded East Turkestan 71 years ago on October 13, 1949. We want to thank the various Western countries and parliaments across the world for speaking up on our issue, and we condemn the silence of the Muslim world, especially the silence of Muslim leaders like Pakistan's Imran Khan and Turkey's Recep Tayyip Erdogan. The Muslim world needs to break their silence and come to the aid of the most oppressed Muslims in the world, and that is the Muslims of East Turkestan. The world must acknowledge the colonization, genocide, and occupation that is being perpetrated by China and take stronger actions to bring it to an end. Without restoring East Turkestan's independence, there is no way to truly guarantee or ensure the freedoms, human rights, or the very existence of East Turkestan's Uyghur and other Turkic peoples. On November 12th, Uyghurs and other East Turkestanis across the globe will be commemorating East Turkestan's Independence Day. Twice in the 20th century, the people of East Turkestan rose up against Chinese occupation of our country and declared independence as the East Turkestan Republic. The first East Turkestan Republic existed between November 12, 1933, and lasted until April 16, 1934, after being overthrown due to Soviet intervention and Chinese nationalist invasion. Once more, the people of East Turkestan declared independence on November 12, 1944, and we were able to maintain our independence until the Chinese communists invaded East Turkestan and overthrew the independent East Turkestan Republic on December 22, 1949. The East Turkestan government in exile will be holding a rally in front of the U.S. Capitol on Thursday, November 12th from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. to call on the U.S. Congress to recognize the genocide that is being perpetrated by China against Uyghurs and other Turkic peoples in East Turkestan, and also to call on them to recognize East Turkestan as an occupied country. In light of this, China and its agents have been seeking to undermine the efforts of the East Turkestan government in exile, which has really never stopped since the establishment of the government in exile back in September of 2004. We urge governments, individuals, and organizations to be cautious against certain individuals who might claim to represent the government in exile in an effort to undermine our mission and our overall standing. Our representatives can be found on our official website, east-turkestan.net. China and its Communist Party has also been using its intelligence networks like the Ministry of State Security, Ministry of Public Security, and especially the United Front Work Department to coerce, infiltrate, influence, and undermine the efforts of the East Turkestan government in exile and other Uyghur and other East Turkestani organizations, and even our own diaspora communities. We urge law enforcement and Western intelligence agencies to push back against China's intelligence operations targeting our organizations and our communities across the globe. We will also commemorate International Human Rights Day, which also happens to be the anniversary of the Dalai Lama receiving the Nobel Peace Prize on December 10th. We invite everyone, especially Mongol, Tibetan, Hong Konger, and other communities to join us. Thank you.
Now I would like to invite Zumra Daoud.
Benim ismim Zümrət Davud. Ben Şərqi Türkistan'ın Ürümçi şəhərindən kelgan bir Uyğur. Ben Xitayның cəza lagerində çıxan bir şahid. Xitay uzundan boyan xalqımızga zulüm silib keldi. Zeminimizde besilib, yürgüzüp kelayotgan her türlük insaniyetke karşı cinayetleri, irqi qırğınçılıq dep atsak xatalaşmaymiz. Bugün bu yerde sözlayotgan vaqtning o'zidalam Şərqi Türkistandagi milyonlagan Uyğur ve başka Türk xalqlari cəza lageri ve türme qulluq lagerlarida solinmadı. Cəza lagerlarida xalqımız zorlanıp mene yüyüş, Xitayca siyasi medeniyet terbiyeleniş, mecburi açarçılık, mecburi nama'lum doğru yiyiş, basqınçılık, qiynaş, hatta ölümge duçar buluvatıdı. Bir neçe yıl içidilen bu ceza lagerleri türmelerde sansızlagan adamlar öldürüldü. Lagerlarının sırtıda olsa bütkül ahalimiz Xitay bexatarlik kısımlarının Xitay parakendiciligi ve nazaretiga uçuratıdı. Ameliyatda Xitayның atalmış tuqqan programması arkalı Xitay amaldorlari uyimizga besip kirip uyimizde birli yetip bizni nazorat qilib keldi. Ailemizdeki 12 yaşlık kızımni öz içiga algan hammeylan Xitay tuqqan taqsim qilindi. Men Şərqi Türkistan'da turgan çığımda Xitay hükümeti meni neçe ming, hatta neçe yüz minglagan Uyghur ayollarni mecburi tug'mas qilib qo'ydi. Xitay hükümeti tarixda nüfusun köpeyişinin aldığını iliş üçün atalmış planlıq tuğut siyasetini yolga qo'ydi. Hazır ular bütkül nüfusumuzni yo'qotmoqchi bo'lyapti. Bu irqiy qirg'inchilik. Tug'ish holati normal. Ayollar bolsa Xitay erleri bilen toy qilishga mecburlanadi. Bundan sırt lagerlarning içi ve sırtidagi sanoqsiz Uyghur ayolları Xitay amaldorlari ve bexatarlik qismlari tarafidan bosqinchilikka uchragan. Bosqinchilikka uchragan Uyghur ayolları o'zini o'ldirib olgan ahvollarning intayin ko'p bo'lgan. 20 milyondan ortiq Uyghur ayolları ailesinden ayrılıp devlet boshqaruvidagi yetim bolalar ve yataq maktablarga avatilib, ularni o'z madaniyati ve milliy kimligiga o'ch bo'lib cho'ng bo'lish Kalnıjoş programma elip berilgen. Ahirki maqsadi sadık Xitay fuqarosiga aylandırış. Hatta nurgun ayollar ailesinden ayrılış sebebinden qaza qilgan. Yani bazıları özünü öldürüp olmoqchi bo'lgan. Mana bu Xitay hatta bolalarimizni yo'qotyapti. Mening Ürümchidagi butun mahalla qo'shnilarim Sharqiy Turkistonga boshqa nurg'un mahallalarga o'xshash Xitoy tarafidan butunlay vayron qilindi. Xitoylar bizning fizikalik turalg'u joylarimizni yo'qotishga urinmoqda. Bizning dinimiz, madaniyatimiz, kimligimiz, xalqimizning hayoti tortib olindi. Hatto organlarimizni yig'ib setish uchun xalqimiz o'ldiriladi. Xitoyning bunday qilishidagi sababi biz Uyg'ur bo'lganligimiz, biz Turkiy millat bo'lganligimiz uchun eng muhimi davlatimiz Sharqiy Turkiston mustaqil bo'lishdan qo'rqadi. O'tgan yili men BDT'dagi o'rnashtirilgan faoliyatda guvohlik bergan edim. Uzun o'tmay dadam Xitoy bexatarlik qismlari tarafidan o'ldirildi. Bugun bu yerda so'z qilganligim uchun yuqori badal to'lashim mumkin, ammo Uyg'ur xalqim yuqori badal to'lab kelyapti. Butunlay yo'qolish girdobiga berib qoldi. Shunga men BDT va dunyodagi barliq hukumatlarni Xitoyning Sharqiy Turkistondagi Uyg'ur boshqa Turkiy xalqlarini irqiy qirg'inchilik qilganligini e'tirof qilishga, bu qirg'inchilikni to'xtatish uchun harakat qilishga chaqiraman. Rahmat.
Now we're open for questions, and Prime Minister Saleh Houder will answer all those questions. I would like all of you to comment all the questions in Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, Twitter, and we will answer all those questions. Thank you.
In addition to some other issues that we want to raise, is historically we've raised this issue. We'd like the U.S. government and all governments across the world to utilize the right terminology when referring to our country. Nobody refers to Tibet as Xizang, nobody except China. The term Xinjiang, which in the Chinese language means the new territory or the new frontier, was imposed by the Chinese forces after they invaded and occupied East Turkestan. East Turkestan historically has been a homeland of Uyghur and other Turkic peoples. It has never been a part of China, unlike what China claims. In fact, if you look at historical demographics of the region of East Turkestan, of our country, prior to 1949, or at the time of Chinese communist invasion of East Turkestan. At that time, less than 5% of the Chinese population in East Turkestan of the population was Chinese, less than 5%. And that population constituted mostly of the Chinese soldiers and their family members that they had brought in to colonize East Turkestan. Over the past 71 years, China has made East Turkestan's population of more than 90% ethnically Turkic people to less than about 55% today, and brought up the Chinese population of less than 5% to nearly 40% today as part of its genocide and colonization.
From Facebook, Harry Chen asks, what do you think are the biggest obstacle for ICC to take up the complaints?
So the biggest obstacle for the International Criminal Court to take up this complaint is really, I don't see any big obstacles other than their own willingness. China is not a member of the ICC. It's not a constituent of the Rome Statute. So that is also a good thing, but also a bad thing, because they might use this as saying we don't have any constituency to to push this forward. However, when looking at the Rohingya case, Myanmar was not a signatory of the Rome Statute, but because of the genocide that Myanmar was undertaking against the Rohingya were forced to flee in their homes, their country, or their land into neighboring countries like Bangladesh. And Bangladesh is a member of the ICC. So therefore, they had jurisdiction established because of this. Similarly, thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of Uyghurs and other Turkic peoples over the past 71 years, and especially more recently, were forced to flee their homes into neighboring countries like Tajikistan, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, and in some cases into countries like Cambodia, which are Tajikistan and Cambodia are members of the ICC. They are signatories of the Rome Statute. And not only are they signatories, but these two countries also deported Uyghurs and other Turkic peoples back to, Chinese occupied East Turkestan, where since some have been imprisoned, most of them actually, all of them have been imprisoned or disappeared. We don't know if they are alive, if they are dead, we still don't know. Some of them, we've gotten reports that they were sentenced to death, but others we don't know. There are countless others that we don't know about, which the governments of Tajikistan does know about, that were secretly transferred, deported to China or to Chinese occupied East Turkestan. So that is the biggest constraints. But really, it's up to the international community, parliaments and governments across the world, especially member states of the ICC, to push this case, because there is no doubt what China is doing in East Turkestan is a genocide.
I don't mean to put you on the spot, but would it be possible for you to kind of read along what she wrote and maybe roughly translate what she said?
Yes. So I can. Yes.
Just like an overview, it doesn't have to be word for word.
In the meantime, Saleh Hudair will translate whatever Zumrud and Dawood said. So we're going to be waiting for more questions. I would like everyone to type in more questions. So at the end, we will answer all those questions. Thank you.
So coming back to Ms. Sumra Dawood's speech, statement, I will give a rough translation of it. My name is Zumra Dawood. I was born in Urumqi, East Turkestan. I am an Uyghur, and I'm a witness who was actually in China's concentration camps. China, for a long time, has been oppressing our people. They occupied our land, and what they are doing in East Turkestan is nothing less than a genocide. As I speak right now, China is holding millions of Uyghurs and other Turkic peoples in concentration camps, prisons, and forced labor camps. China is brainwashing our people under the name of political re-education and cultural re-education. They are forcing upon forced starvation upon our people, giving them forced medication, in most cases inside the camps, raping them, torturing them, and even executing them. In recent years, the number of people who have died in the camps have been quite many, and we don't know the exact number. Many people are dying inside the camps, and outside the camps are entire families have been put under surveillance. Our entire people have been put under surveillance, and the Chinese have placed quote relatives in our homes under its relatives programs. Chinese officials under its relatives programs, and these people, they come into our homes to monitor our activities, to even sleep and eat with us, and to report our activities to the Chinese government. Even my own family, including my 12-year-old daughter, had their own relatives assigned to them, Chinese relatives assigned to them. When I was living in East Turkestan, the Chinese government forcibly sterilized me and thousands of other Uyghur and other Turkic women. The Chinese government historically has been taking measures to prevent the growth of our population under its family planning or population control policies. Right now, they are trying to wipe out our entire population, and this is a genocide. They are forcing Uyghur women to marry Chinese men, whereas they're forcing whereas inside the camps and prisons, they are raping and sexually abusing Uyghur and other Turkic women. There have been numerous cases in which Uyghur women that have gotten raped and have committed suicide as a result of this. And over 500,000 of our children have been separated from their families, being sent to state-run orphanages and boarding schools, where they are taught to hate their own identity, their own culture, and become loyal Chinese citizens. The Chinese government is also destroying the very physical structures of our culture, our historical sites, our cultural sites, entire Uyghur neighborhoods. In Urumqi, my entire neighborhood and its surroundings have been destroyed as part of China's efforts to, quote, modernize East Turkestan or develop East Turkestan. Our language, our culture, our religion, and our very identity is being eroded. They are even harvesting our organs by killing our people and selling them across the world to people who want to buy it. The reason that China is doing this is because we are Uyghur, because we are Turkic peoples, and because it is our country, it is our land, and because they fear that we want to be independent. Last year, when I spoke at the United Nations side event, shortly afterwards, my father was arrested by the Chinese security forces and he was killed. Even right now, as I speak, I might be paying a price, but our people are paying a price every day. We are on the brink of becoming wiped out. Thus, I urge the United Nations and all governments across the world to recognize China's atrocities against Uyghur and other Turkic peoples in East Turkestan as a genocide, and to take strong actions to stop this genocide. We are asking for your help. We are asking for your help. We are asking for your help to end China's decades of genocide, colonization, and occupation of East Turkestan. Thank you. This was translation first.
A follow-up question by Harry Chen. Do you see President-elect Biden keeping a tough U.S. policy against China on the Uyghur issue when he comes into the office?
Well, based on his previous statements, his historical record, let's say, prior to the elections under the Obama administration, they never raised, not even once, the issue of Uyghurs and other Turkic peoples. However, he did, as part of his campaign, state that he was going to, that they were going to recognize, or that they do recognize, China's atrocities against Uyghurs as a genocide. But China is obviously Chinese state media appears to be very happy that Biden was, got a lot of votes, and that they want to see him as president. However, we don't know. We don't know what will happen. We hope that if Biden is elected president, we hope that he will adhere to his campaign promises to raise this issue, to recognize it as a genocide, and to take stronger actions. Regardless who is president, our statement is clear. Our position is clear. We want all governments across the world to take strong measures against China, to other than just engage in sanctions, but to also recognize the atrocities, recognize East Turkestan, and to raise this issue at the United Nations and other international bodies like the UN Security Council, to raise this issue at the International Court of Justice, and if necessary to even intervene, because we don't have a whole lot of time. Every day, more and more people are being shipped out of East Turkestan into Chinese provinces to be used as slave labor, to be used as to have their organs harvested, or to be executed without the world knowing. And this is why the world needs to assess what the real population of East Turkestan is. Chinese state media is not going to report that they collected 36 million people's DNA in East Turkestan if East Turkestan's official population is 24.5 million. And those people were not non-Chinese people who had their DNA and other biometric data collected. Which means, what is China doing? Is China underestimating the Uyghur population, downplaying the Uyghur population so they can secretly kill off millions and then have the remaining 12 million that they brainwashed in the camps and shutting it down and saying, well, you shut down the camps, everything is back to normal? No. Is that what China could be doing? It could very well be doing that, but it's not going to be normal. More recently, you had China report that, there's coronavirus breakout in East Turkestan, especially in predominant Uyghur areas like Kashgar and Atush and other areas in the south. Why are they doing it in just this area? Why is coronavirus not breaking out in the Chinese dominated areas? Why are they only collecting, testing the Uyghurs and other Turkic peoples? Why are they not testing the Chinese? These are all questions that need to be asked. Because what we suspect, and though we don't have any real evidence of this is just based on our own assessments of the situation, given what China has been doing over the past 71 years, and given that they have clearly stated that they have the capabilities to wage ethnic specific genetic attacks against its enemies, and Uyghurs and the Turkic peoples being China's biggest enemies, we can't overlook the fact or the possibility that they might be waging biological warfare against our population. They could be testing their new coronavirus vaccines on our people, or they could be injecting them with other substances that could possibly cause them long-term psychological or even physical effects on their bodies. Another issue while we're at this is the rise of tuberculosis amongst Uyghurs and other Turkic peoples in East Turkestan. This is something that no media to this day has reported on. China has the highest TB cases rates in the world. It's number one. inside China and its occupied territories, East Turkestan is the most, prevalent area with TB cases. The Chinese government claimed that they treated 50,000 TB cases in 2018 alone. Right now, many of the people that are dying in the camps, China is saying they're dying from TB. China is saying that, oh, these people, they died from TB, so it's not our fault. They died from these diseases. So inside the camps, given the conditions inside the camps, if one person has tuberculosis, it's much easier to spread that tuberculosis and leave those people untreated and essentially killing them, without the world even knowing that you're killing them. And then when they die, you just say, oh, they died from TB. The World Health Organization and other health institutions need to send in people into East Turkestan, into these camps, into these prisons, and give these people actual treatment so that they don't die from TB and so it doesn't spread to other people, to where our population is slowly being eroded. This is another issue that we need to raise.
Why do you think Muslim nation didn't raise their voice against China yet?
So Muslim countries across the world have ultimately been silent on our issue. And this is not something, just today. I mean, if you look at it historically, they have been silent over the past 71 years. The Muslim world has been oddly silent on our issue. And there are many reasons for this, especially today, like Turkey, for example. Turkey is supposed to be most vocal against, the most vocal on our issue, given that they are a Turkic country and that they are a Muslim majority country. The historical and cultural ties that they have with East Turkestan. But they are silent because of Chinese investment. China, through its Belt and Road Initiative, has given tens of billions of dollars, if not hundreds of billions of dollars, to Muslim countries across the world, either through loans or through investments, and essentially bought their silence. That's why, Muslim leaders like Imran Khan, Recep Tayyip Erdogan, they are quick to criticize France for, a caricature, but they turn a blind eye to the brutal genocide that's going on. If Muslims anywhere are facing a great oppression, that's in East Turkestan. Women are being raped. Over 16,000 mosques have been destroyed or damaged. Even cemeteries have not been spared. Qurans have been burning in the streets by the Chinese government, to where our people, some of them hid it and threw it in the river, so that river would flow into Kazakhstan and our people on the other side could get it, to protect these sacred religious texts. They even ridiculed the Prophet Muhammad on Chinese state television, yet you don't have the Muslim world leaders criticizing this. Why? Because money. They're too heavily influenced by Chinese money, and they're engaging in hypocrisy. If they truly adhere to their promises of, we stand up for the oppressed, and now I'm talking to both President Imran Khan and Prime Minister Imran Khan and President Recep Tayyip Erdogan here. Both of them, they have made numerous statements saying that they, are defenders of the oppressed, and they will always be on the side of the oppressed against the oppressors. There is no bigger oppressor of Muslims than China today. There is no bigger enemy of Islam than China today. And these two leaders, are siding with the enemies of Islam. So if you are true to Islam, then you need to speak out. You need to address this issue. Your countries need to be the first countries to recognize the genocide. Your countries need to be the first countries to actually take concrete actions by ejecting Chinese diplomats, and issuing diplomatic démarches, calling on boycotts on Chinese goods and services. This is what you need to do if you truly care about Muslims and if you truly care about the welfare of Islam. Thank you.
Why do you think nations should raise against China, especially their neighboring countries?
Because, again, China, 71 years ago, when it invaded us, it came to us by saying, you know, we're going to help develop your country, we're going to help modernize it. The same promises that it's making to neighboring countries today, whether it's in Kyrgyzstan, Kazakhstan, Pakistan, through this Belt and Road Initiative. It promises to bring you development, it promises to bring you wealth, modernization, but ultimately what's going to happen is it's going to bring colonization of your country. And we're already seeing this in parts of Africa, we're already seeing it in parts of Central Asia. You're going to end up exactly like East Turkestan is today, because the Chinese, their ideology, if they really wanted to invest in your country and help your people, they wouldn't bring their own workers. They wouldn't bring hundreds of thousands of Chinese into your country when you have people who are unemployed who could use that job. They wouldn't do that. But it's because they are setting the stage for colonization that they're doing this. So any country who values their own national sovereignty, any country who values their own people's culture, their rights, their freedoms, their democracy, needs to stand up against China and needs to bring down the Chinese Communist Party and work with, you know, the people of East Turkestan, the people of Tibet, the people of South Mongolia, the people of Hong Kong, and the people of Manchuria to regain their independence. Because once we are independent, then we can serve as a buffer, as a protection for the other layers of countries in Central Asia or South Asia.
Do you think China had any interest in the 2020 election in the United States?
I think they did have an interest. I mean, it's quite clear that they have an interest. I mean, Chinese state media like Global Times, CGTN, you know, even Xinhua, you know, they have been promoting a lot of Marxist ideology, and there are, you know, Marxists here in the United States under the guise of Antifa that have been creating havoc in the U.S. China obviously, you know, fears, I think, what the Trump administration had done, because prior to the Trump administration, no administration, especially on the East Turkestan issue, had done a single thing. No administration. Under the Trump administration, that's when the world started to learn about the Uyghurs, or at least pay attention or acknowledge that Uyghurs and East Turkestan exist. Before that, no government would talk about our issue. This genocide that we're facing today, it didn't just happen under, you know, just because, you know, the past few years. It didn't happen because they started building the camps. This has been slowly ongoing for decades. And China's biggest interest, as we stated earlier in the statement, is to maintain control of East Turkestan, to ensure that East Turkestan doesn't become, you know, an independent nation as it was once before. And because to prevent this, China is going to, you know, interfere in every country's elections that might support East Turkestan or that might oppose China's atrocities or, you know, its Belt and Road Initiative to essentially make China the most dominant political, military, and economic power.
Hamid Siddiq, President-elect Biden said that he will rejoin WHO, which is made in China organization that hiding the truth of COVID and responsible for 230,000 deaths in the U.S. Any comments on that?
I mean, I think if he is elected, I mean, at this point, though some media reports that, you know, he has already gotten elected, there's still legal issues that are being resolved, so we won't know who is the actual president until probably in December or probably until January itself. However, regardless of who is in power, again, the World Health Organization has played a crucial role in spreading the coronavirus across the world, across the US and other places. Why do I say this? Because they denied, you know, the threat of the coronavirus, they denied the scale of the coronavirus, and they protected China. They praised China. and by doing that, putting the entire world at risk. The World Health Organization, if they really cared about the health of the world, they should have been the first organization to call out the coronavirus, to call out China, and urge countries across the world to, close down their borders, at least for China, because that's not racist. It's not racist for closing down your borders, knowing that there's an infectious disease, because you want to close your borders to protect your people, because you have to protect your people, because if you can't protect your people, how are you going to be able to help the rest of the world if you can't help yourself? So they should have realized this, but they did not do this. So what we'll see what happens. I think it's a bad idea for either, parties, whichever one is actually becomes the president on in January. For both of them, whatever happens, the U.S. joining the World Health Organization or funding it again is not a good idea, in my opinion. It's totally my personal opinion. Okay. If we can wrap up, thank you again for attending our press conference and for watching us online. These are very important issues that we raised today that needs to be addressed by governments, organizations, and researchers across the world.
What did you mention anything about November 12th? There's an event on November 12th?
Yes, we issued that in our statement.
Okay.
These are serious issues that need to be addressed, especially concerning the Chinese government's intelligence operations against our community. This is something a lot of governments across the world are failing to address, and I fully believe this is also prevalent here in the United States as well. We recently, found out about the spies within Tibetan community, and there is no doubt spies within the Uyghur community. Recently, there was a self-proclaimed spy of China in Turkey who was shot in Istanbul for, revealing that he was a spy and revealing what China was doing, forcing him to spy on other Uyghurs and Uyghur organizations by holding his family captive in East Turkestan. There are spies within our community that, unfortunately have been coerced by the Chinese government, or either blackmailed by the Chinese government, or have been actually trained specifically by the Chinese government. But other than suspecting this, we have no real evidence of this. So we want the U.S. government, U.S. intelligence agencies, law enforcement, and Western intelligence agencies across, Europe and other services across the world to address this. Because the reason why our movement is weak in comparison to the Tibetan movement or other movements is exactly because of this. Chinese attempts to co-opt our organizations or leaders, Chinese attempts to infiltrate our organizations or leaders, and there have been numerous examples of this, which has happened. In fact, in Sweden, I believe there was one country Sweden who had arrested a Chinese spy who had infiltrated another Uyghur organization. So these are all serious issues that needs to be addressed in order to effectively raise our issue, because a lot of our people are afraid to even go out into demonstrations, to even attend, rallies commemorating our Independence Day, because there are agents of China in our community that are either threatening them, or agents of China from abroad that are threatening them via their families.
You're the Prime Minister of East Turkestan government in exile. What are your wishes from the Uyghurs around the world?
So as far as what our wishes are from the Uyghurs around the world, we want our people to be united. We want our people to work together for one common goal. We only have one enemy, so we don't need to make enemies with one another. We need to be, heedful against, those individuals within our community who might try to sow discord in an effort to weaken us, in an effort to divide us, in an effort to pit us against one another, because this is all Chinese tactics to weaken our movement, to weaken our national struggle in order to prevent, East Turkestan from becoming an independent country. Because that is China's number one goal in regards to East Turkestan, is to prevent it from becoming independent. And so they will no doubt exert all their efforts to undermine us as a people, as an organization, as a community, and as individuals who are struggling to, speak out against these atrocities. And we've seen this too many times. All right, thank you again. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us today. So we will wrap it up here. If you have any further questions, you have 2 more minutes to comment, or you can email us and we will reply back to you. Thank you.